This is the video for Digital Assignment 1 of ARC 8013 Comp Design. In this digital assignment, we'll be going over how to get your project started in REVIT. That's going to include importing an AutoCAD survey file as our base, setting the project location to be the correct location for the project, setting north to be correct based on the drawings that we import. Then we are going to make the three-dimensional site, which is called a topo surface in REVIT. And then we're going to do something called adding subregions, which doesn't sound like what it really is. What it really is just cutting the streets, parking lots, sidewalks, and all of that out of your topo surface. And we'll go over that in more detail. It's also going to start us working with levels for getting your building and the existing building built. We'll look at quick massing and quick solar study. So with that, we're going to get started with REVIT. So open up the REVIT file. And once you're in here, or just open up the program REVIT. Once you're in here, we're going to just click on New, since we're starting a new project. The architectural template is fine. We're going to hit OK. You'll see that they have construction templates, architectural templates, and some more simple versions. But the architectural template just starts us off with some basic elevations, 2 levels, which means 2 floor plans, 2 ceiling plans, and a site plan. So with that, before we do anything, we are going to pull in our CAD file and start working with that. So to do that, we're going to go to the Insert tab at the top. And there's 2 ways to bring in the CAD into REVIT. One, you import the CAD, and what that does is it actually brings the line work into your model, and you will pick up all of the line styles and layers of the AutoCAD file, so it makes your REVIT file fairly heavy. The other way to do it is the link CAD. Linking is just like making an XREF, except the difference here is if you were working on your plans in AutoCAD and then building them in REVIT, you can actually link the AutoCAD file into REVIT, and as you update it, it'll update in REVIT once you reload. So it is handy if you're working in the AutoCAD file and not just using it as a background to link to it. So what we're going to do in bringing in our AutoCAD file is we're going to click Link. We're going to go and find the file that I uploaded to the Blackboard site and hit Open. And if I double click on my wheel, I should zoom out and see where the project comes in. So you can see our 0 point's really in there where these elevations are, but based on the AutoCAD file, it comes in differently. So with that, now we're going to start making our site work. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on this and move us a little closer to the middle of the file where those elevations are. And what we have to do that is, it's hard to see because everything's blue, but this little pin shows up. When you import things into REVIT, a lot of times it pins it to its current location to hold it, so you can't move it. I can try and move this and it won't do anything. But if I unpin it, now I can use the move file. So there's a couple different ways to unpin it. One, if you find the pin, you can click on it, or you can come up here onto your menu and click unpin, or you can literally type the word up for unpin. So I'm going to type up, unpins, move the center of the building to more or less where all my elevations are, and there. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a 3D view. So right now we're looking at this in a floor plan. Make a 3D view so we can see what this looks like in 3D. 2 ways to do that. You can either go to View and say 3D View, click down, say Default 3D View, or you can click on the little house up here on your toolbar. And once you do that, you have your view cube and you can start moving around. If you hold down the Shift button and push in the scroll wheel of your mouse, you can rotate the file. And you'll see that what happened is this AutoCAD file, and the way that the civil engineers surveyed this, is it has 3-dimensional contours. So you can see my contours are in 3D. This is very, very handy when it comes to making your topography. This is just going to mean a couple steps for us, and we'll be done with the shape of the site, or at least the existing shape of the site. So now to make your topography, what we're going to do is we're going to go up to Massing and Site, click on Topo Surface, and typically the way you make, if you're making from scratch, is you'll actually place points, and you can give an elevation to each one of the points. In our case, we're about 172 feet above sea level at the existing building's base. So we'd be making all these elevations at 171, 172, 173, and clicking on all these lines. Instead of doing that, since we have the 3D, we're going to say Create from Import and select Import Instance. We only have one thing to select in this model, so I'm going to click on it, and it brings up the layers that it's asking which ones to make the file, or to make the topography out of. So I'm going to check None and scroll down and find the L contours layer. I edited the AutoCAD file and bound the contours to it and put them all in one layer to make this a simple step. So hit OK. It's going to think for a second because it's actually making thousands of points along all of these lines and making it look like that. So right now you can see there is thousands of points, and if I click on any one of them, it'll tell me the elevation of that point. So that point is at 144 feet. This is how you edit contours in Revit. You don't edit lines, you edit points. So each one of these points is at a different elevation, or outside of the lines. All these lines are the same elevation. So if you ever wanted to edit your contours, and I'll show you in a second what it does to it, you would actually move one of these points up or down, or delete points to make your topography more simple. So with that, I'll click back on Edit Surface, and since it's creating this, you're in an active dialog of editing the surface. So it's not done building your topography until you click the green check mark. And once I do that, it doesn't seem like much happened. So what I'm going to do is you can either type SD, or you can change your graphic display to be shaded. And you'll see now when I hold down Shift and my scroll wheel, I have a three-dimensional actual site that right now is made out of dirt, so it's brown. But that's all 3D, and that is a topo surface to start building your site work with. So with that, before we get into the subregions, one thing I like to do is get the location of the project in the right spot and get the north facing the correct direction. So to do that, I'm going to go to my site plan, and we're already turned in the north direction, so I just want to make sure everything's correct. But before we even do that, if you click on Manage, we're going to go to Location. And then once we're in location, we're going to put in the project address. So this project is located at 1700 West Only. So if I put that in, search, it should find the location. And I'm not going to wait for the map to update, but that's the correct latitude and longitude. So I hit OK. And now we are on the correct part of the world for where our sunlight would come from. So the next thing to check would be that our north arrow is pointing north. And it seems to be. If it wasn't, what we would have to do is, in this site plan, we would have to make sure we are set to true north. And what we would do is take our position, rotate true north, and make sure that this is rotated straight up. So with our location set and true north already pointing up, the next thing we're going to want to do is start getting into cutting our subregions and making our site work look correctly. So with that, we're going to stay in this plan view, this site plan view. then we might want to do is start to cut out our parking lot here. So to figure out what layer I want to trace, I know it's this cyan color. So if I click on the linked file, I can query the layer. And it's L-Site Road. So if we go to Visibility Graphics under View, Visibility Graphics, or just type VG, we can go to the Imported Categories tag, and we can do Site Road. We can override it with a color that might be easier to see. Make it red, and maybe make it a thicker line weight. So now we can see it a little bit better. We can start tracing it. So to make the region, we go back to Massing and Site, and now we go to Subregion. And again, this starts a dialog that you open and close, and you can't touch anything else until you're done making your subregion. And subregions must be fully closed shapes. So for this one, let me get at this for a second. So this is a little complicated to see what's going on. So right now, what I'm probably going to do is do VG, and I'm going to turn off, go to Imported Categories. Now, an easy way to turn these off is to hold down the Shift key and select a lot of them, like this. And we want to definitely keep the L Road and L Road stripe on, since those are what we're going to be tracing. There we go. Now, one thing you might find is that typically you're going to be in hidden line, and so some of these, they're going to look like they're missing. What they're actually doing is these lines are in a plane and they're below the surface of the topography, so they're disappearing in the surface. So one way to make sure we can see them all from the position we are in, up well above, is to click down here and go to Wireframe, or you can type WF. So just to start off, I'm going to trace out this parking lot and select Subregion. You can immediately start drawing a line, but what we're going to do is we're going to do the pick line command and start picking lines. And wherever we draw this little pink line is where it's going to be making a subregion. Make sure to just keep it right on the parking lot. So we're making this all one subregion. We're going to make sure that the lines close properly. So we're going to use the trim command and select one and the other, trim it down, and then we're going to do the inner portion of this. We can always come back in and edit the extents of this, but this is the way to make a road. So what we'll want to do is keep marching around. We're going to have to divide these up a little bit. I'll show you how to. So we can't have a condition where we have the line bridging. So we're going to come up here to the split element, or SL, cut it, and then if we go to the trim or type TR, we can trim these sides. We need to trim this off too. And then we can start clicking again. So this does get tedious, but the good thing about when you use subregions is once you've cut the region out of the topo, it's still connected to the topography, which means if you change your topography, the street will actually adjust height with the topography. So that's why it's very good to make your sidewalks and streets out of the regions, the subregions. So I'm going to cut this piece again so that I can trim off on this side, trim off over here. This line got a little short. So I'm going to keep working around. I know this is tedious, but everyone's going to have to do this anyway. Typically when you're done, you're going to get an error message anyway for some line work that's not closed. That's okay. We'll find a way to close it one way or the other. I'm just dragging that end. Cut that again, trim. The trim command is one that we'll be using more than just line work. It'll be used for modeling and a lot of other locations. The trim command should also be able to close the items that aren't closed. So we're almost to the end. Turn these off. Alright, so now once you've made your completed circle, you can try and hit the green check, and I'll probably get an error message. Yep. So just ask it to show me. Lines can't intersect each other. It's showing these in orange up at the top. So I'm going to hit continue, try and see what's intersecting. I can just use the trim command, hopefully. That's trimmed. Oh, and these are not. These are not. That one was not connected. So I'm going to zoom out again. Hit the check mark. It's giving me another problem. So let me just click on this and make sure. We might have lines on top of lines. Oh. Let's see if there's an intersection. Yep. If I zoom in, there is an intersection happening right there. So I use the trim command to trim those off. Hit the check again. Got another one. Show me where it is. Alright, something's intersecting down here. Looks like it certainly could be right about there. So it's a little picky, but show me where that one is. We can keep hitting the check mark and keep trying to work our way through these little. That's obviously an overlap, so that doesn't work. Trim that. Check mark. Show me where that one is. It's just the problem of drawing this many lines is you're going to have little things like that that don't line up. Oh, that last one worked. Now we have a subregion. Type HL, save the project. And then we can just jump back to our 3D view, see what we have. And it doesn't look like much yet, but what we want to do is assign materials. That's what the subregions allow us to do. So I'm going to select my topography, and you can see under your property bar here that it's by category. Let's just say it's not by category. Let's see if there's a grass in here, or any kind of site work. So there is not a grass in here, so we're going to make a material. We can just create new material, default new material. We're going to rename it to grass. And then what I'm going to do is, this is just a very brief touching on materials. Open the asset browser, go to Appearance Library, and go to Site Work. And here, if we double click on a Appearance Library material, it should jump into our grass up here. Close that. So my computer is not attached to the materials right now, so my grass actually doesn't look green. But you can start to see how this is now a different color from where I carved out the street. You can also see how the street follows the contours now as they move around. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at getting our plans squared up and our levels to the right level. So if we go to, let's say, the north elevation, you can see there's a lot of line work here. But down below are our actual levels. So what we want to do is move these levels up to about the right level. What we don't want to do is move level 1. Level 1 we need to keep here, otherwise we'll lift all of our imported line work up too. So I'm just going to rename level 1 datum, because that, yes, we'll rename corresponding views. That is our 00 sea level. But I will rename level 2 to be, oops, got on the wrong stuff. Click right on it and try not to get that little offset. Maybe I'll call this one ground. I'm going to move this up to 172 feet above sea level. So now, when we zoom out, we're going to leave datum on the ground there. And ground is now within the line work of the site. It's about where the existing building is sitting. So you guys can refine the height of that datum, but right now that's where it is. And while I have it selected, I can also just use the copy command and make another level 20 feet up. It didn't quite go straight up, sorry about that. I'm going to hit tab until I actually get the level I want. Hit copy. It'll snap and draw a line, and then I could just type 20, hit enter, and rename that to be level 2, just so we could start to have some levels. And there we go. So now we can go into the next step of making a massing. To make a massing, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the ground floor level. And for all of these, we can start using our crop command to turn on the crop view and actually just crop this down to about where we think our plan would be as we're working on this. And so right now, we might want to build the existing building. So to do that, we'll do massing in site. We're going to do an in-place mass. Mass 1 is fine. It's just what it's called. And I am going to see if I can get this to trace around. But what we need to do is click all the way around, very similar to how we did the subregion. But this time we're creating a mass. So I skipped ahead and traced around the entire existing building. So you can see in blue, I traced the building using the line work that was in the imported file. So with that selected, I'm going to hit Create Form and make a solid form. And now if I jump to a 3D view, you can see that I actually made a 3D shape. Obviously this is very basic. This is good for when you're first massing up buildings. And don't worry, the making these is not a waste of time, because you can then use the faces of any of these shapes to start building actual walls, roofs, and floors. So I'll hit Finish Mass, and we'll have a completed mass sitting on the site. Now, there's some quick things we can start to do just to finish this assignment and start doing some analysis. One is to do a quick sun study, just to understand how the sun passes over the site. Since we set true north, our sun setting should know where we are. So we'll do a single day. It's got the location right. We can do sunrise to sunset, and we can do a summer solstice study. And we're going to make the ground plane level ground. Make sure your sunrise to sunset. Let's do it every 15 minutes. And you can also come down here, turn your sun path on. If you back out, you'll actually see your sun path and where it comes and goes over. So we're doing a single day, turn on shadows, and we can do a preview solar study. And what that lets us do, I might have done that quick, sorry. I turned on shadows down here, that little X next to the ball. You need to turn that on in order for you to have the preview solar study button available, which comes up here. So now if I hit play, you'll actually see how the sun comes up and over the site and where it casts shadows during the day. One thing you'll see on that mass is that it didn't really cast a shadow. The reason for that is that the material of the mass is somewhat transparent. So what we'll have to do is try and change that. So I'll turn off the shadows. I'll select everything and go filter so I have a mass. and I'll edit in place. And I can select all of this. And for its material, I'll just pick something that's solid. You can do gypsum wallboard if we want to. Finish mass. Now, when we turn our shadows back on, our mass will also cast a shadow. So when we run this solar study, we will actually see it cast a shadow. That's how you make a simple solar study. So we rename this view. We can name this Summer Solstice. We can do the same thing. We can duplicate it and go do the winter solstice and the equinoxes. And all you have to do is, once you duplicate it, just change your sun settings and change it to one of the other options and keep the same sunrise to sunset in 15 minutes and have your ground plane at ground. And that'll let you complete solar studies and start analyzing your site.